BamaCentral.com. I'm Joey Blackwell here with Katie Windham, and this is Just a Minute. It's SEC tournament week for the 14 teams across the Southeastern Conference. All 14 teams are obviously gearing up for what is sure to be a great tournament. Alabama will be playing the winner of the Florida and Mississippi State game. But for now, let's talk about this Alabama basketball team. Alabama obviously had a little bit of a slump over its last few weeks. They did manage to win the majority of their games, but obviously they closed it out on a sour note with a loss at Texas A&M. But there are definitely some things that this team needs to improve on heading into the tournament. But on an individual basis, we'd like today to highlight some players that should Alabama succeed in not just the SEC tournament, but in March in general, Alabama's going to need some players to, for lack of a better term, step up. But I think it's really a better way to put it would be players need to be able to play like they were playing earlier in the season and play to their full potential. Katie, out of all the players on Alabama's roster, who do you think would be the most crucial that Alabama could use to step up right now?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest strengths of this team for the majority of the year was its depth, and that when it went to the bench, there wasn't any fall off in production. That if Brandon Miller, Noah Clowney, or Mark Sears weren't playing good or were in foul trouble or just needed a little bit of a breather, Alabama could sub them out and bring other people in, and there would be no drop off offensively. But over the kind of struggles over the final few weeks, there hasn't been a ton of production coming from the bench outside of Javon Quinterly. And one of the guys that Alabama needs to get going again is Rylan Griffin. There was a stretch late January to kind of mid February where he was scoring in double figures regularly. He had one of his best games, probably the best game of his career against Auburn, tied a season high with 16 points on the road, which, you know, he was a big part of that win for the Crimson Tide in a place that's been tough for them to win. And since then, he averaged 3 points per game over Alabama's last 6 games and scored no points 3 different times. And so he's a guy that he's a good shooter, obviously. We've seen it at different times this year, but has been struggling from beyond the arc lately. And so he's a guy that Alabama needs to get more production from off the bench. And like I said, we've seen it a lot of different times this year. So if he's a guy that you can turn to get double figures off the bench, it makes this team even more challenging for opponents.
Yeah, I agree. And I think another guy that you could look for is a guy that we've seen play some really good basketball, but has been a little cold lately, is Nimari Burnett. Burnett, over his past, 5 games here, he's only recorded 1 basket. He was 3 for 4 against Tennessee back on February 15th, but since then he was 0 for 3 against Georgia, 0 for 4 at South Carolina, 0 for 3 against Arkansas, 1 for 4 against Auburn. That's his 1 made basket, and then 0 for 1 at Texas A&M. But we've seen really good basketball from Nimari Burnett. He really hasn't been the same since coming back from injury. He had 2 lights out games. I believe it was the Vanderbilt game and the LSU game, which was very soon after, if not when he returned from injury. But since then, we really haven't seen Burnett play to his full potential. So he's another guy that I think that if he's able to get the ball rolling this week and get back to playing good basketball, it goes back to what you said. It adds so much depth to this team. You don't have that offensive drop off. Alabama has been good. Even both Griffin and Burnett have still been solid on the defensive end of the court. It's really their offensive game that hasn't been showing up like it needs to. So if both these players are able to turn things around, I think they'll add a lot of depth, and it'll definitely increase Alabama's chances of winning or doubling up on its SEC championships this year. For BamaCentral.com, I'm Joey Blackwell with Katie Windham. This has been Just a Minute. Thank you so much for watching.